Good morning. Today we'll begin with the new chapter, chapter 7, on page 116. Employment growth, informalization, and other issues. Now, there's a very nice quote given by Mahatma Gandhi in the box, where he says, "What I object to is the craze for machinery, not machinery as such. The craze is for what they call labor saving machinery. Men go on saving labor till thousands are without work and thrown on the open streets to die of starvation." Very nice saying. He says, I'm not against machinery as such, but what I'm against is simply the craze for machinery, where the people say, I will put machines instead of man, and machines will do more work and faster work than man. As it is, we are a populated country. If we are going to put machines instead of man, he says, then men go on saving labor till thousands are without work. What will happen when men are replaced by machines? They will be without work and they will be thrown on the open streets, so to say, to die of starvation without work. So he was averse to this of machinery replacing human labor. People do a variety of work. Some work on farms, in factories, in banks, shops, and many other workplaces. Yet a few others work at home. Work at home includes not only traditional work like weaving, lace making, or a variety of handcrafts, but also modern jobs like programming, work in the IT industry. Earlier, factory work meant working in factories located in cities, whereas new technology has enabled people to produce those factory based goods at homes in the villages. Why do people work? Work plays an important role in our lives as individuals and as members of society. People work for earning a living. Some people get or have money by inheriting it. What do you mean by inheriting it? Their forefathers or their fathers before them have left them that money. Inherited. So they inherit the money, not working for it. This does not completely satisfy anyone. Being employed in a work gives us a sense of self-worth, gives us a sense of self-worth and helps us to relate ourselves meaningfully with others. Every working person is actively contributing to the national income and hence the development of the country by engaging in various economic activities. That is the real meaning of earning a living. Every person is actively contributing to the national income. So simply inheriting money and saying we have got money, no. Work gives you income which enables you to earn a living. That does not mean everything, because some people, like he says, have inherited money. But when you work, every person is actively contributing to the national income and hence the development of the country takes place by engaging various economic activities. That is the real meaning of earning a living. We do not work only for ourselves. We also have a sense of accomplishment when we work to meet the requirements of those who are dependent on us. Having recognized the importance of work, Mahatma Gandhi insisted upon education and training through a variety of works, including craft. And who realized this? Mahatma Gandhi. He says people should be educated and they should be trained in variety of works, including craft, so that these people can earn a living. Studying without working people gives us insights into the quality and the nature of employment in our country and helps in understanding and planning our human resources. It helps us to analyze the contribution made by different industries and the sectors towards national income. It also helps us address many social issues such as exploitation of marginalized sections of the society, child labor, etc. Workers and employment. What is employment? Who is a worker? When a farmer works on fields, he or she produces the food grains and raw materials for industries. Cotton becomes cloth in the textile mills and in power looms. Lorries transport goods from one place to another. We know that the total money value of all such goods and services produced in a country in a year is called its gross domestic product for that year. When we also consider what we pay for our imports and get from our exports, we find that there is a net earning for the country which may be either positive if we have exported more in the value terms than imported, or we may go into negatives if imports exceeds our exports in value terms, or we may have zero, that is if exports and imports were of the same value. So exports bring us income in, imports we give out our income. So when we have more of exports and less of imports, what is happening? We are getting money into the country. But when our imports are more than the exports, what is happening? Our foreign exchange, our money is going out of the country. That is bad. However, if we have both equal, then that is the time where we have zero value, where exports and imports are the same. When we add this earning plus or minus from the foreign transactions, what we get is called the country's gross national product of that year. Those activities which contribute to the gross national product are called economic activities. So all those activities which contribute towards the GNP, gross national product, is called economic activities. All those who are engaged in economic activities in whatever capacity, high or low, are workers, even if some of them temporarily abstain from work due to illness, injury, or other physical disability, bad weather, festivals, social or religious functions, they are also workers. Workers also include all those who helped main workers in these activities. We generally think of only those who are paid by an employer for their work as workers. This is not so. Those who are self-employed are also workers. The nature of employment in India is multifaceted, having many dimensions. Some get employment throughout the year, some others get employed for only a few months in a year, and many workers do not get fair wages for their work. While estimating the number of workers, all those who are engaged in economic activities are included as employed. You might be interested in knowing the number of people actively engaged in the various economic activities. During 2011 and 12, India had about a 473 million strong workforce. Since the majority of our people reside in the rural areas, villages, the proportion of workforce residing there is higher. The rural workers contribute about 3-4 votes of this 473 million men from the majority of workforce in India. About 70% of the workers are men and the rest are women. Men and women include child laborers in respective sexes. Women workers account for one-third of the rural workforce, whereas in the urban areas, they are just one-fifth of the workforce. Fetching water and fuel wood and participate in farm labor. They are not paid wages in cash or in the form of grains. At times, they are not paid at all. For this reason, these women are not categorized as workers. Economists have argued that these women should also be workers. Like, for example, a mother working at home. We pay her something, salary? No, she is there, but she is working 24 hours a day. So, should she be categorized as a worker? The economists, some economists say yes, her contribution also should be acknowledged, that women should also be called workers who are working in their own homes, whether it is their own home fields, whether it is on their own home, what you call machines, small handicrafts and things like that. Their income should also be included. Participation of people in employment. The worker population ratio is an indicator which is used for analyzing the employment situation in the country. This ratio is useful in knowing the proportion of population that is actively contributing to the production of goods and services of a country. If the ratio is higher, it means that the engagement of people is greater. If the ratio for a country is medium or low, it means that a very high proportion of its population is not involved directly in economic activity. You might have already studied in lower classes the meaning of the term population. Population is defined as the total number of people who reside in a particular locality at a particular point of time. If you want to know the worker population ratio for India, divide the total number of workers in India by the population in India and multiply it by 100, you will get the worker population ratio for India. So if you look at table 7.1, it shows the different levels of participation of people in economic activities. For every 100 persons, about 39, by rounding of 38.6, are workers in India. In urban areas, the proportion is about 36, whereas in the rural India, the ratio is about 40. Why is there such a big difference? Simply because more people are living in rural areas of the workforce. So naturally, the workforce in the rural areas will be more. Why is there such a difference? People in rural areas have limited resources to earn a higher income and participate more in the employment market. Many do not go to schools, colleges, and other training institutions. Even if some go, they discontinue in the middle to join the workforce. Whereas in the urban areas, a considerable section is able to study in various educational institutions. Urban people have a variety of employment opportunities. They look for the appropriate job to suit their qualifications and skills. And in rural areas, people cannot stay at home as their economic condition may not allow them to. So another reason given why the urban population has more ratio of workforce is because, see, economically they are not very sound. So, and most of them do not go to schools, colleges, or anything like that. They do not go for any training. So what do? They directly join the workforce. Now, even if some of them, they say they go to schools, they drop out somewhere in the middle, very few pursue higher education, very few go for training. So what do? Once they drop out, again they join the workforce. But that is not the case in urban, that is in cities. In cities, people mostly get educated, or they try to get educated, they try to get trained, and so there is a delay in joining the workforce, whereas in the rural areas, they instantly join the workforce because they don't have schoolings, they don't go for any training, they don't go to colleges, they simply join the workforce. But what type of work are they doing? They are doing the lower, the type of work which is meant for those who are not, so to say, able to handle jobs where decisions are to be taken because of education is being lacking over there. So they look for appropriate jobs. He says, they look for the appropriate job to suit their qualification and skills. In rural areas, people cannot stay at home as their economic condition may not allow them to do so. They are not economically sound, so they need to go out to work. Compared to females, more males are found to be working. The difference in participation range is very large in urban areas. For every 100 urban females, only about 15 are engaged in some economic activities. In rural areas, for every 100 rural women, about 25 participate in the employment market. Why are women in general and urban women in particular not working? It is common to find that where men are able to earn high incomes, families they discourage the female members from taking up jobs. So this is one reason. Going back to what has already been mentioned about, many activities for the household engaged in by women are not recognized as productive work. This narrow definition of work leads to non-recognition of women's work and therefore to the underestimation of the number of women workers in the country. Think of the women actively engaged in many activities within the house and at family farms who are not paid for such work, as they certainly contribute to the maintenance of the household and farms. Do you think that their number should be added in the number of women force? Yes, of course, because they are contributing. But unfortunately, their work is not being included for what we call in the calculation of the workforce. Self-employed and hired workers. Does the worker population ratio say anything about workers' status in society or about the working conditions? By knowing the status with which a worker is placed in an enterprise, it may be possible to know one dimension, quality of employment in a country. It also enables us to know the attachment a worker has with his or her job and the authority she or he has over the enterprise and over other co-workers. Let us take three workers from the construction industry: a cement shop owner, a construction worker, and a civil engineer of a construction company. Since the status of each of them is different from another, they are also called differently. Workers who own and operate an enterprise to earn their livelihood are known as self-employed. Thus, the cement shop owner is self-employed. About 52% workforce in India belongs to this category. That is, if you go to see, out of 100, 52 people are self-employed. They are doing some business of their own. Thus, the cement owner is self-employed and about 52% workforce in India belongs to this category. The construction workers are known as casual wage laborers, that is daily wage laborers. When they work, they get the money. When they are not employed, they are without a job. They are casual wage laborers. And they account for 30% of India's. Such laborers are casually engaged in others' farms and in return get a remuneration. Remuneration means a payment for the work done. Workers like the civil engineer working in the construction company, they account for about 18% of India's workforce. When a worker is engaged by someone or an enterprise and paid his or her wages on a regular basis, they are known as regular salaried employees. If you look at the chart below at 7.1, you will notice that the self-employment is a major source of livelihood for both men and women, as this category accounts for more than 50% of the workforce in both the diagrams. Casual wage work is the second major source for both men and women, a little more so for the latter, that is 31%, that is mostly for men. But when it comes to regular salaried employment, men are found to be so engaged in a greater proportion. They form about 20%, whereas women form only 13%. One of the reasons could be skill requirement. Since regular salaried jobs require skills and a higher level of literacy, women might not have been engaged to a great extent. When we compare the distribution of workforce in the rural and the urban areas in chart 7.2, you will notice that the self-employed and the casual wage laborers are found more where in rural areas than in the urban areas. In the latter, both self-employment and regular wage salary jobs are greater. In the former, since the majority of those depending on farming, they own the plots of land and cultivate independently, the share of self-employed is greater. The nature of work in urban areas is different. Obviously, everyone cannot run factories, shops, or offices of various types. Moreover, the enterprises in the urban areas, they require workers on a regular basis. Now, employment informs factories and offices. In the course of economic development of a country, the labor flows from agriculture and other related activities to the industry and services. And in this process, the workers migrate from the rural to the urban areas. Eventually, at a much later stage, the industrial sector begins to lose its share of its total employment as the service sectors enters a period of rapid expansion. This shift can be understood by looking at the distribution of the workers by the industry. Generally, we divide all the economic activities into 8 different industrial divisions. They are number 1, agriculture, number 2, mining and quarrying, number 3 is manufacturing, 4th is electricity, gas and water supply, 5th is construction, 6th is trade, 7th is transport and storage, and 8th is services. Now, for simplicity, all the working persons engaged in these divisions can be clubbed into 3 major sectors. That is the primary sector, which includes 1, B, secondary sector, which includes 2, 3, 4, and 5, and C, the service sector, which includes divisions of 6, 7, and 8. So table 7.2 shows the distribution of the working persons in the different industries during the year 2011 and 12. Primary sector is the main source of employment for the majority of workers in India. The secondary sector provides employment to only about 24% of workforce. About 27% of the workers are in the service sector. The table of 7.2 also shows that about 64% of the workforce in rural India, they depend on agriculture, forestry and fishing. About 20% of the rural workers are working in manufacturing industries, construction and other industrial activities. The service sector provides employment to only about 16% of the rural workers. Agriculture is not a major source of employment in urban areas where people are mainly engaged in the service sector. About 60% of the urban workers are in the service sector. The secondary sector gives employment to about 35% of the urban workforce. Though both men and women workers are concentrated in the primary sector, the women workers concentration is very high there. About 63% of the female workers is employed in the primary sector, whereas less than half of the males they work in that sector. Men get opportunities in both the secondary and the service sectors. Why? Because they move out from their places, they go out from the rural into the urban, and leaving the agriculture, forestry, fishing to the women folk who carry on this work at home. That is why he says men get opportunities in both secondary, that is the manufacturing, as well as in the service. We'll stop till then and we'll continue tomorrow. Okay? Tomorrow we'll continue from here. Have a nice